Good afternoon. Welcome so much to this show, the Sistership Show. I wanted to just introduce the subject that we're going to be talking about today, pre-planning a life transition. That's what this show is about. And I know talking about death and planning is very difficult. It's a subject that no one ever really wants to explore. So, with that said, we have dipped into some very good sources. A gentleman by the name of Roman McGahee. He is the manager of CMS East Cemeteries. They have 29 locations, and along with his associate is Bernice Molyneaux. And I think you're really going to walk away with this subject feeling much better and wanting to be prepared. And when I say prepared, not just for yourself so you have peace of mind, but for your family. You're going to learn a lot of things about misconceptions and things that we have been actually programmed to believe when it comes to death and planning our own funerals. So please join us. Please subscribe. And I hope you really enjoy this show. I think you're going to walk away with a wealth of knowledge. I know I did. So please enjoy.
You roll with me and I roll with ya. We're my sisters, we got this sisters. You roll with me and I roll with ya. Sis, you know we on a mission, no games. Help each other get over some things. Real strength bring change. Cause we've been through the rain. Now it's time to shine like blaze. Let's talk about life skills. We building up our quality the right will. We rolling out of poverty, love heals. So we become the prodigy of how a sistership could be a really hot commodity stand. Together we united, hold hands. Support each other's dreams and our plans. Doing everything we can. Just to show we understand the power of a friendship fam. Live life on purpose. Together we learn it. Yeah, let's talk. We don't want to see you hurt and be here for each other. No matter the color, networking. That's for sure. And for come on. We on a sister shit. Come with us. We on a sister shit. Yes. We on a sister shit. We got no brothership going on, y'all. We're my sisters. We got this sisters. You roll with me and I roll with ya. We're my sisters. We got this sisters. You roll with me and I roll with ya. Sistership, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. Sistership, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. Sistership, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. Sistership, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. We on a sistership. We on a sistership with the little brothership. I'm turning this over to Spicy. Welcome.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very interesting topic that we're going to have this evening. But first, I want to introduce who's here with us. We have our wonderful, beautiful guidance mind of Mama C. Welcome. Always so great to do a show with you. Beautiful Trish. How are you this evening?
I am great, Spicy. I am great.
Good. And of course, behind the scenes, we have our Tiffany Coe, who makes sure that we sound good, we look good, and she gets the message out there for us. So thank you so much. But this evening, it's interesting, the subject we're going to be talking about, pre-planning a life transition. That is the name of our show this evening. And I'm very, very honored and humbled to have two wonderful people with us that are in the midst of this of pre-planning life transition. Roman McGahee, and we also have with us Bernice Molyneaux. Now, did I pronounce that correctly?
Molyneaux.
I'm sorry. I took French in high school. Don't remember a single thing about it. But I love this subject that we're going to talk about this evening, only because I think it is a subject that we're all faced with at some point in time in our life: pre-planning, life transition, death. And it's a subject that we all do face, but a subject that we really try to run from, right? We really don't want to talk about. So hopefully, Roman and Bernice, you'll be able to walk us through some of the process, some of the incidences that bring people to you. And Roman, you are manager of the CMS East Cemeteries in Dallas, PA. Is that correct? I
Yes, it
believe
is.
they are it's a national company.
Corporation.
Is that correct?
Yeah, national corporation.
Yep. And Bernice, you are aspiring to become a funeral director.
Yes.
Yes. Welcome, both of you. Thank
Thank you.
so much for coming and talking about this difficult subject. I'm sure you'll both agree that I don't think anyone really sits down very much to plan this unless you are faced with death. So, Roman and Bernice, let's talk a little bit about death in of itself, right? I mean, explain maybe to the audience or to the listeners exactly what you find the hurdles are when you have to speak to someone in regard to death.
Would you like me to go first, Bernice, or you?
Yes. I would like you to go first, sir.
Okay, my name is Roman McGahee. I'm the manager of Chapel Lawn Memorial Park. And I've been in this industry since 1995 and also obtained my license to become a funeral director as well. I've seen many tragedies in the industry where people are forced most of the time to take care of such a need. And I've seen families where they didn't have the money, they overspend, or they emotionally stressed out where they cannot even think.
Mm-hmm.
But with prearranging, you have the opportunity to take care of it yourself as a single person or a married couple. You can do it together, which makes a lot of sense when you do it together. For the simple fact is, you have peace of mind and you don't leave it on your loved ones to have to take care of it. But most of the time, many families, they wait to use insurance policies. And that's the wrong thing to do because life insurance is exactly what it says. It's for the living spouse to continue to live. But most families have changed it around for their death policy. And we have found that many families have been forced to move into their homes with their children that they have raised because they don't have enough money to continue to live on. And guess what? Most funeral directors take advantage of families at the time of death because they cannot think. And they're going ka-ching, 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 because they say, we got you where you want it. You had the opportunity to prearrange, but yet and still, many families will wait and pass it on to their other loved ones. And many times I have seen families have to go to GoFundMe for the simple fact they didn't never plan. And that's so sad when you have to reach out and ask, can you help me? All those years you've been on this earth, but yet and still, you'll have cell phones for even the little children, but you will not pay $50 or $60 or $70 a month for something that makes sense. And believe me, it hurts me to my heart when I see families still. They say, yeah, it's a good program, but yet and still, when you try to contact them, they won't even pick their phone up until something happens. But you know what? Like I talk to many pastors, I say, pastors, let me ask you a question. You preach about getting your house in order. You have an obligation to your congregation to be able to explore this knowledge to them. Wow. Now, when you do, most families still will not take care of it. And then when a loved one passes away, they wait and they say, Pastor, can you help me? But yet and still, you still got your hand up for something that makes sense. And I give seminars at churches, nursing home, assisted living places, and to talk about the cost of inflation. If something costs you $6,000 to $7,000 today, versus you're 50 years old, you live to be 90 years old. If something costs you 6,000, you freeze the price on it. Does that make sense? And at the time something happens, the funeral home calls the cemetery and they say, Roman, what did Mr. So-and-so or Mr. Blank have? I said, let me check their file and I give you a call back. And then they say, well, I say they got the casket, they got everything they need. The only thing a family would need at a funeral home would be embalming and a viewing. That's amazing. And you can freeze the price on these things, but yet and still families, they need the education, but it has never been offered to many families. And many families are used to going to the old neighborhood funeral home. And he's saying, okay, families getting to the age where they want to prearrange. And they say, well, I think I'll go down to the funeral home and tell John I want to talk about my arrangements. What he does is he take your information and he put it into a file. He cannot prearrange the funeral services like we can. We are a memorial gardens, and we can freeze the price on everything except the embalming and a viewing. And that's amazing because many families will wait and be forced to take care of this of the last day and the worst day of their life.
Mm-hmm.
But the simple fact is, they'll rather use their money for anything else except to prearrange. And you know what? We can die just a minute from now.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen where I've been to churches getting ready to talk to a pastor about a seminar. I have seen, this is the truth, where they drop dead right at the pulpit.
Wow.
So that's amazing. And they're giving a sermon. So the thing is, what I'm trying to say to families is, we only on this earth for a certain amount of time.
Absolutely.
And burial goes up, just like you see those commercials on TV. Funerals doubles every 5 to 10 years. That is true. But the simple fact is, something cost you 20 years ago, maybe $500 or $1,000. Look at today's cost. And most families spend between $8,000 to $10,000 for a funeral at the funeral home. That's not including cemetery property. So many families, they wind up, they spent a lot of money from the insurance policy, and when the time is over, they say, oh my God, I have nothing left. And then they can't even afford a memorial for the grave. But the simple fact is, your funeral director is in control of your insurance policies. So folks, what I'm trying to tell you is, insurance is for the living to continue to live. And guess what? Many families, our ancestors, they paid on the insurances faithfully because they didn't want to leave something on their loved ones. But insurance companies, they gamble like anyone else. They figure somewhere along the line, it's like a casino. They say 9 times out of 10, the average person is going to drop that policy. And most families, they chase behind that long-term policies, the term policies, in which it says a lot of money. But guess what? In 10 to 15 years, it starts to change because you got to switch that policy over. And as you get older, it gets more and more expensive. And therefore, many families, they can't afford it at that time. So what have you been chasing? You got nothing left, but you're still going to pass away. And I have seen the trend change from most people used to like a traditional burial. But today, they're forced into cremation. I remember when the cremation societies first came in existence, and most people was against cremation. But today, second nature. And guess what?
Is it because of the cost? It's more economical, or because people are not planning properly and are forced to do
both.
that?
It's both. Because you could spend well over $6,000-7,000 for a cremation. It all depends on what type of cremation you want. See, there's several different types of cremation. There's a direct cremation, where you just go from general hospital to the funeral home, then you wait 24 hours, then you go to the crematory, where you don't even get a chance to see your loved one. Then we have an ID cremation, where you can come in and see the body, just the immediate family. Then you have one where you might have a traditional cremation, which is where you rent a casket and then you can view the body and have it at the church. And after that, you go back to the funeral home, you take it out of the casket, and then you take it to the crematory. The next one is you have a cremation, then you have a memorial service. Now I'm meeting with a family Wednesday. I thought the lady had just passed away. He's had his mother since 1994 at home. And he says, I'm finally finna let her have a resting place. I said, I'm so sorry to hear that. I said, that's good though. You're putting closure finally on your mom. But look at, in 1994, sometimes I have a problem with understanding families, but the simple fact is, to put closure on something, it helps you heal faster.
Yes.
But yet and still, families have turned that around, see. And when I was at the Mary and Durkin's funeral home, we had families that didn't even come pick the cremains up because they didn't have the money to put closure on them. And then when I was in college, there's a lot of families that are winding up with being in the dump because they keep the cremains at home, just like they got them from the crematory, the little cardboard container, and they don't have enough money to put them in to inter them. So therefore, they put them in the closet or put them on the mantle, and then when they pass away, the kids say, "I don't want nothing to do it. I can't afford to do nothing with them," so they wind up leaving them in the homes.
Wow.
And that's kind of sad. But we have many different programs available today where we can actually help families to memorialize their loved ones. And we have inexpensive programs. We have so many different programs. There's really no need why families today do not prearrange. And also, we belong to the American Cemetery Association, where that's national, even in other countries. If you prearrange today, you can actually join the Memorial Society, the Cemetery Association, and we will help you relocate to those areas with memorial gardens. And you never lose the money that you pay. You may have to pay a little difference in cost, but everything you have is transferable to another memorial garden, which is an excellent program.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mr.
What-
Roman, can I ask you a question, please?
By all means.
When you said that the funeral home is in charge of the insurance policy, can you elaborate on what you meant by that?
Okay, let's say if you have an insurance policy of 25,000. You don't have no other money. Well, they become first lien on that policy. So now you have to pay today's cost, whatever it is, for that funeral. So let's say you pay $6,000 for the casket, $2,000 for the vault, and then the embalming and the viewing and the transferring of the car to the funeral home, to the church, and we ain't talking about cemetery yet. So you're looking at a big chunk of your insurance policy going just to the funeral home.
Wow.
So,
So
I was to go into the funeral home right now and make arrangements. That
you
is not
cannot.
order.
You cannot do that. You cannot do that. For the simple fact is, they cannot freeze the price on something today and be able to maintain that 20, 30 years from now. It's impossible.
Wow.
See, we have money put aside in an escrow account held by the state where they actually governs that money. And that's how we are able to be able to deal with the cost of inflation for many years to come. Many funeral homes go out of business, so many families lose their little profits what they had in the funeral home.
Very true.
Wow.
Mr. Roman, if you don't mind, I would like to elaborate on that a little bit.
Okay.
A lot of times I'm a counselor at Chapel on Memorial Park. And I also notice this much too as well. When people say that they have relatives that live in another state, let's use down south for an example. And they will sit there and say, my family has property down there. They're thinking they're getting the whole package of which you're supposed to get at a funeral home. I'm sorry, at a cemetery when you're pre-planning. And they're not. A lot of times when you do make those calls, or me or Mr. Romo will make those calls, you will find out that the family, the cemetery that's down there, they only selling plots. That's it. Nothing else, nothing more.
Oh, no
So-
opening or closing or any of that.
Nothing, just the plot itself. Where with Memorial Gardens, you can get everything.
Oh.
Can you
Wow.
elaborate when you say everything?
As far as
Elaborate.
you can lock in the prices against inflation, against for your vaults, for your memorial, for your casket, and even urns.
And isn't there an additional fee though? I did a little research and I burying my husband many years ago as well. We had to pay for opening and closing of the grave.
Absolutely. There is an opening and closing, even in your little small
Fee.
church cemeteries.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what the opening and closing do is, that's money set aside for perpetual care to maintain the beauty of memorial parks.
Oh.
See, just
See,
from the what
we
I'm
are the
go ahead.
we are the leading edge on cemeteries when you think about it. It's just like if you want to go to get a Mercedes Benz, where you expect a Mercedes Benz to drive like a Mercedes Benz and look like a Mercedes Benz. So therefore, when you go to a memorial garden, that's what our specialty is, the beauty of our parks, to make sure that they're maintained for many years until eternity, to be beautified. And people come out there and say, oh, how beautiful this is. And they have it's the dignity of those funeral homes, the cemeteries, I mean, where you come out and you take pride in being, say, my mom and my dad is here. Look how beautiful it is. Just like I say, it's just like buying a Mercedes Benz. And
Now-
I take pride in being the manager of Chapel Lawn Memorial Park because it's the most beautiful park in Luzerne or Lackawanna County.
You know what? Listening to you now, Tiffany, my daughter had been on me for the longest to get a life insurance policy, you know, and so that at the point when I close my eyes and take my last breath, there would be money to take care of those preparations for my death. Listening to you, it seems now what I should have done was gotten even more information, because that life insurance policy, from what you're saying, is going to go to the funeral home. Am I correct?
Well, let me explain on that now. Your daughter's going to take the insurance policy. My mom got insurance.
Mhm.
And he's going to say, may I ask, can I see your policy, please? And he's going to say, well, let's say it's 18 years from now. And let's say you got a $20,000 policy. Well, I don't know if that would bury you or not,
Mm. Mhm.
to be honest with you.
Wow. Wow.
But what you could do, you could freeze the price on your casket, your vault, and your memorial. Those are the most expensive things you're gonna need, no matter where you go. And then, like I tell families, the money that people have for insurance, let's say if you got a $25,000 policy. Most people wind up, that's all they wind up with, because they done chase those term policies forever. Then they get to the point they can't afford them. And as we get older, we can't even afford the little $20,000 policy.
Mhm.
So therefore, you done spend all this money, do the math sometime. Let's say if you're spending $70 a month for a $20,000 policy that you bought when you was 28 years old, and it's worth 30,000. Do the math for the next 30 years and see how much you done put into that policy. And then you're gonna have to pay on that policy to the death, till you die. Look at the money that you paid on that policy for a $20,000 or $30,000 policy, where you still might even have enough to bury yourself. And then guess what? Many families, they wind up with an hardship. In 2 or 3 months, you done paid on that policy for 30 years. In 2 or 3 months, you lapse. You got nothing.
Nothing.
Wow.
Wow.
I was
You have
just getting ready
nothing.
to say that. Thank you
But
for
you know,
elaborating.
you could take out your pre-arrangements with a memorial garden. You could take it up for maybe 6 years with interest, but only without interest, we go 36 months. And after 36 months interest free, your pre-need is paid up. And again, all you need is from the funeral home is the embalming and the viewing.
So where does your job begin and the funeral home's job ends? How does
Good question. A lot of times, my job begins when a family calls and I'm gonna give you two examples. I'm gonna give you one when a family has prearranged. Then I'm gonna give you one where a family has nothing. Let's start with the one with the family has prearrangements. And let's say I'm gonna use Mary Jones. Mary Jones' daughter calls the cemetery. And she says, my mother, I have paperwork here. My mother has arrangements with Chapel on Memorial Park. I said, okay, let me pull the file and I will call you back. And I say, yes, Mary Jones has a vault. She has a casket. She has a memorial. She also don't pay for opening and closings. Now think about it. How many families would be so happy that mom had taken care of this 15 or 20 years ago, and it's all taken care of. Now she takes this paperwork to the funeral home. The funeral home calls and re-verify it. And I say, yes, Mrs. Jones has everything with us. When would you like the casket delivered to the funeral home?
Wow.
Oh, wow.
See, we have our own casket company. We have our own vault company. We have our own memorial company. Something that funeral homes do not have. Some of them may have a display area where they, like it's like a rent space. They rent it from the casket company. Okay, then when you sell that casket, you say, John, I'd like to have another casket in the place of that one. Where us, we say, when would you like the casket delivered to your funeral home? Big difference.
Now,
Question.
Mr. Ro,
Okay, go ahead.
yeah, I wanted to ask or mention, and you can verify if you also supply this, the lining of the casket.
Yeah.
I have paid for my husband, for my mother, for my father, so on and so on. So when a casket comes in, is there nothing in there? I'm just really curious because I paid for what they call lining, and I had to pick out a color and how deep, how thick the padding was under them and everything. Was I ripped off? I guess is what I'm asking you. Is that normal? I'm being serious. I put it on my question list because
Can I ask you a question? What year was this?
well, my husband died in 2004.
Okay, and how much did the funeral cost you?
I'm kind of embarrassed to tell you, was about $26,000.
Whoa.
Now,
What
my
did you get with the
husband-
26,000?
Well, my husband was a very large man, so we had to special order a casket. His shoulders he was a big Sicilian guy. So his shoulders, I mean, when we went there, when they brought his body there, they called us and said, hey, listen, he's not going to fit into a
So you need
casket
an extra wide?
unless afterwards we tilt him. And my sons were like, oh my God, no way. That'll haunt us the rest of our lives if we do that to him, you know?
Yeah.
And
So
I'm
you
not
had to
trying
get
to
an
make a
extra
joke of
wide
it.
casket, right?
I'm sorry?
You had to get an extra wide casket?
Yes. Mhm.
You ready for me to answer
Yeah.
you?
Uh-oh.
Go ahead.
Okay, that was a good scenario there. You paid a lot of money. I couldn't work with you. I just said, ma'am, I said, I'd rather for you to go to another funeral home. And getting back to the casket, let's say people just started getting obese in the last maybe 15 years or more. We start seeing a big obesity change in people.
Right.
Now, let's say you bought prearranged with us 30 years ago. You might have weighed 130 pounds. Then you died today, you weigh 400 pounds. You might have paid $700 for that casket years ago. Guess what? We don't charge you no difference for the oversized casket.
Wow.
Nor do we
Wow.
charge you for the lining of the casket neither.
Wow. You know what? I after listening to just this little bit, I now realize that what I want is more in alignment with what you guys are talking about.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I've only paid one payment on that insurance policy.
Yeah.
I think it's probably time for me to cancel it and talk with you guys personally about exactly what I want, so that when I go, my daughter and my grandchildren are not stressing. It's all taken care of. I
Yeah.
think that's the sensible thing to do.
Correct. Now, I
Correct.
would
Let
like to
me
also,
explain something to you. Let me explain something to you. When you come into the office, me and Bernice, we will sit down with you. First of all, I want you to be relaxed and think about where you're at, why you're doing what you're doing, and you don't want to leave it on your children.
Right.
And you want to be satisfied with what you got.
Right.
That's the main thing of having a family with prearranging. They're satisfied, they're happy, they have peace of mind, and knowing that they didn't overspend and they're not leaving a burden on their loved ones. That's the most important part of prearranging. And you know what? I have helped so many families throughout the United States. And you know what? I can go to families home and they say, "How are you, Roman?" Because they know I was sincere about helping them. That's the most, and that's why I get my peace of mind and my joy, knowing that I helped the family and they didn't overspend for something. That makes sense.
Well, you know what? I can feel your energy, and
Yeah.
I'm loving what I'm feeling. It feels
It's only the truth.
sincere.
It's
And-
honest.
Yeah,
Honesty,
yeah, and that's what you need is
sincere.
honesty.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Mama C, I would like to also speak about something that you were talking about as far as life insurance policies too as well. I'm going to give you a live testimony, which is my experience before I became a counselor.
Mhm.
I'm a mom of 9, and I was paying my own policy along with 9 other children policies as well, separately, not together. Let me tell you what we offer. Not everybody are married. Not all homes are 2-parented homes.
Mhm.
And it can be a major financial impact, especially during these times right now with COVID going on.
Right.
A lot of people are either losing their jobs, laid off, or going for jobs that pay pennies to nothing just to keep food on the table, just to keep the roof over them and their children's head.
Right.
We offer something which you would not get with an insurance policy. You will never, I will say it again, never get it with an insurance policy. We have something which is called the Family Protection Plan. So let me give you an example. I purchased a mausoleum. My husband purchased a mausoleum. Our children, God forbid, something happens to our children, or 1 child, 2 child, there's no special amount. Your child will get exactly what you get at no cost.
Wow.
That's a good program.
How old is the child? How old does the child have to be?
It could be 2 months old. They could be up to the age of 21. And if they go to college, up to the age of 25.
Wow. Wow.
Now
And we
you
see it
tell
every
me.
day. We see it every day with family members. They get in car accidents.
Yes.
Mhm.
They never make it home. They left home and they say, "Love you, Mom. I love you, Dad." And they never come
Never,
home.
never
But
return.
guess what? If you have your pre-need with us, all you have to do is call the cemetery and say, "My son passed away." And we'll handle it from there.
Wow. You know what? I got chills running up and down
Yeah,
my
so
legs
do I, Deb. I do
because
too.
there's so much that we don't know and we think we know.
Right.
And that's why this particular session is so, so important, because see, I'm learning stuff that I had no idea. I thought, oh, well, all you do is you need an insurance policy and whatever from
Then you
there.
go to the funeral home.
Yeah, then you go to the funeral, whatever. So, I already told my daughter what I want. I want to be cremated. I want my ashes spread over the earth. There are things that I want. But the bottom line here is, how do I facilitate what I want in the most powerful way, so that my daughter, my grandchildren are not stressed out and just
Right.
traumatized by the whole process?
Because it's a vulnerable time, Mr.
Yes.
Roman, Bernice, right? Wouldn't you agree? You're very vulnerable. My husband died suddenly, but I have to tell you, when my mother died, we knew she was dying. It was the impact and the sorrow was still the same. Death
Yeah.
is death. The loss is the loss,
And
right?
everybody mourns differently.
But you know
Absolutely.
what? Spicy. Death is death, but when you make pre-arrangements and when you know that you have everything in order, so God
Yeah.
forbid you do depart this earth, but when you depart and you know everything was fine and your children and your loved ones know everything was fine, it makes the mourning a little easier and the sorrow
Yeah.
a little easier, because
Absolutely.
think about, oh my God, what are we going to do? How are we going to get this money? They know it was taken care of. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Grandma, Grandpa, Auntie, Uncle, for making sure that everything was done for yourself, because you know what you want, as Mama C said. You know how you want to depart. You know what you want done. So who's better to make sure that it's done besides you yourself?
Absolutely.
See, and
Absolutely.
Yes.
a lot of
yes.
people use
Yes.
a whole bunch of different excuses. See, you see so many people that want to keep their money in their pocket, but they'd rather spend money, like Mr. Roman said, Mr. McGahee said, they'd rather buy Little John a cell phone. But understand this, Little John passes away. I get tired of seeing GoFundMe pages. That
Yeah.
hurts my heart more than anything, knowing that people, it's not because of the ignorance, they're ignorant because of the lack of knowledge.
Absolutely.
And when you're out there giving knowledge for free of no cost, people will turn their nose up at you.
Yeah.
People will say, well, what's the catch? You
Right.
can second guess that, which is a guaranteed. Death is guaranteed. You
Yes.
can't run from it. You can't get 5 minutes back. You can't get 2 seconds, 2 minutes. It's a gap. Once your number's called, it's called.
Right. And I
Yes.
think death is a subject that people shy away from because it makes them look at their own mortality, right? It makes them
Absolutely.
look
Yes.
at, oh my gosh, maybe I better start cleaning up my act. But here's my question to both of you. Let's say someone came in and pre-planned a funeral and it was $10,000 and they only paid 8,000 of it and they died. How is there an insurance that your organization offers so that the family doesn't have to pay the other 2,000?
Let me
Or
answer
how
that
does that
question for
work?
you. Let me answer
How does
that for
that
you.
work?
Now, I'm going to
Okay.
use 2 age factors.
Okay.
Let's say a person is 53 years old and they've been paying on their policy, they pre-need for X amount of years or 4 or 5 months, and they've been paying consecutive. Let's just use 5 months.
Okay.
They got maybe, it was $9,500 and they got maybe $1,500 into it. And all of a sudden, they don't wake up the next morning. They call the cemetery and they say, John passed away last night, and could you check to see what he had? And if we had family protection of John, guess what? John's his whole package would pay it off for him. But let's say a
Wow.
family is at the age of 61. We can't take family protection out of them for the simple fact is we look at people that's from 30 to 60, they should already be planning for these things. And after 60, you should have these things pretty much in order. So therefore, let's say you've been paying on yours consecutive for 5 years. No, we don't even go that high. Let's say 4 years. And all of a sudden you might owe $1,200 on that. Well, quite naturally, the family would have to come up with the balance of that at that point.
Okay.
Okay?
Mhm.
So a lot of times what a family can do, if they do have a policy, a lot of times the funeral homes, which they have to do, but a lot of families don't notice, they will cut a check to us
Yes.
for the balance.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Now, how have you seen COVID affect your business in as a whole? I mean,
Good
it's
question.
affected everyone, let's face it. And I'm
Good.
sure deaths have been escalated considerably because of COVID. How has it changed the nature of your business?
It have changed in some ways. Many families, they've been forced to cremation for the simple fact, again, they didn't pre-plan. And many families would never pre-plan if COVID was not around. But since COVID have been around, people are dropping off like flies. And we had to still be on the front line out there to say, we take our life in risk to say, you still need to prearrange and get your house in order.
Mhm.
And many families don't. And then when they pass away, they're being cremated, or they're being, in some cities, they're just being put into trenches. But it have changed to the fact that people are holding on to their money to a point to say, well, I don't know if my life is going to be here tomorrow. I'm going to leave the little money I do have for my spouse to live on, cremate me, scatter me. I don't care what you do. But then there's some families that still have the decency to say, I want to be able to plan for my family and make it better for them and not leave something on them and say, okay, I'm going to sacrifice for these few pennies and put my family in a better position to say, I'm going to take care of this.
Yes.
Because death, even with COVID, it's more prompt to be able to say it can happen to anyone.
Absolutely.
So therefore, people should look at pre-planning even more closer. For the simple fact is, we can't even see what's killing us. So
Exactly.
therefore,
Right.
you might go home tonight and wind up in the emergency room and never come out. And so the little money you're holding on to, what did it do for you? Now you got your family emotionally stressed out and saying, oh my God, what are we gonna do? What are
Wow.
we gonna do? And you know what? It's gonna get worse for a while here.
Yeah, I was just
Yes.
saying that today.
Yes. Yeah, the numbers are getting back up there again.
Yeah.
unfortunately.
And you know what? One of the things I think can make this so much easier if we as members of the human family just accept the fact that we're going to die one day.
That's right.
Yes.
See, I think when people do this planning, it brings their mortality into the forefront, into the light, and they don't want to
Right.
accept that. We're all going to die one day.
Yes.
And that's not necessary. That's not a bad thing, depending upon how we die.
That's right.
So it's important that we get the information that you guys have provided, because just in this little time, it's changed my whole outlook and
Yeah,
scope.
mine as
on-
well. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mine
Let-
as
let
well.
me
And I've
explain some-
buried a lot of people.
yeah.
Unfortunately.
Let me explain something else to you. People don't understand about the living will. You need a living will
That was
as
my
well.
next question to you.
Absolutely.
And also a living will is when let's say you might be forced to go to the hospital right now, boom. And the doctor gonna ask, Mrs. Jones, do Frank have a living will in place? No, we were planning on it, but we never did.
Never got around to it.
Okay, so now, let's say the kids don't want what you want, or you don't want what the kids want. Now you're in a dilemma.
Yes.
Now the hospital got to say, we got to make choices now.
Right.
So if you had the living will in place already, and you say your kids, John said he didn't want to be on life support, He didn't want to be on the artificial tubes to continue to live. And he didn't want to be resuscitated. And also, another question I ask families, if you had a choice, would you want to be at home or would you want to be in hospice when the doctors say you have X amount of time to live? And I explain that to people entirely. I say, let me ask you a question, John. I say, you lived in your home for 30 years. This is what you know. If it was me, I would want to be home in my environment where my loved ones are there and they say, honey, they rub my face with the sweat off. And I know I'm passing away, but it gives you that sense of pride and dignity where you saying, I'm still loved. But when you're staring at a wall and all you see is death around you, that's painful.
Yeah, it is.
And you know
Scary,
what
too.
most people would say? I want to be at home.
I didn't know we had a choice.
Oh, yes,
I'm
you
being
do.
really
Yes,
honest.
you have a
Honestly, I
choice.
did not know we had a choice.
Yeah, see, it's
I thought
living will
when you
paperwork.
were told to go into hospice, you went to the hospice. Like I did not, honestly, I'm not
See,
not kidding. I didn't
they
know.
can detect, they can pretty much rule what's said at that point if you don't have a living will. But if you have a living will and you say, this is what I want my husband home, they have to take him home. Then you
I
have
know.
hospice to come to your home.
Yes, that's what happened with my
Yes.
sister. She had hospice at home when she died about 20 years ago. And I'm sure that was the best thing for her. And she felt more comfortable. I mean,
Exactly.
we hadn't expected that she was going to die so quickly. And we were trying to get there, but she died before we could get there. But at least we felt comfortable and we felt better knowing that she died at home with her husband and her son.
More
That's
at
beautiful.
peace because she
My
she
girlfriend,
died
she
for
had
love.
breast cancer and she said out her mouth, I want to go home and be with my children and my husband. And she
Definitely.
called us to tell us, do not cry, do not mourn, that she's going to depart and she's going to depart soon. And when I say she prepared us, she prepared all of us. So we was able to come visit her before she left at her house.
Mhm.
Wow.
And then you got to look at this too as well. It gives you more access to your loved one when they're
Yes.
on their dying bed. A lot of people
Yes.
don't understand.
Yes.
Now, everyone here is a mother, right? When we
Yes.
gave birth in the
Except for
hospital.
Roman, he's a father.
Oh, he's a father. But the one that's on this panel right now.
Take my
when we
hat off
gave
to you, girl.
birth- when we gave birth, there was no such thing as resting after giving birth. The nurses constantly coming in, poking, and I gotta take your blood pressure. I gotta take your temperature. It's no rest. You don't get that rest until you get home. So imagine what your loved one is going through in a hospice situation. They are constantly being
Mhm.
on, pricked and pushed. And that's not a comfortable position.
But you know what though? After all that's said and done, it all depends on insurance too. And then a lot of times families they have bills after those things too. So you have to look at that factor too. You're in that hospital for a reason and you're in hospice for a reason. You know, so when the hospice stops, the money stops. If you're going home, the money still stops. So therefore, the living will makes a lot of sense. And also the last will and testament makes a lot of sense. See, we handle
Yes.
all those things for families. And I go over those books entirely. I give seminars at churches. I do workshops at churches to make sure families understand what the last will is and what the living will is and how to pre-plan and understand pre-planning. Because
So
all of it is one of
along with the
Pardon
pre-planning,
me?
you also provide that explanation and service as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we also have the pre-planning guide because the
Correct.
pre-planning guide acts as the death certificate as well. Because a lot of information in that booklet, when you fill it out, you give it to the person, you say, Donna, me and dad, our mom has put aside what her wishes are. And everything from my credit cards, my life insurance policy, my 401k, My investments, everything is in here. I trust you with my life possessions to make sure everything is carried out in accordingly of my wishes. That book, you cannot put a monetary value on it, for the simple fact is, that's your last will and testament of exactly what you want carried out.
Yeah.
And I have seen many times where families, if they don't have these things documented properly, I have seen when I was at the funeral home, families have had their arrangements, the insurance policy, what they want. If they don't have it in order, those kids go into the funeral home and change it to
Wow.
say, no, I'm
Oh
not
my
spending that kind of
gosh.
money. So you
Oh
have to
my
be very
gosh.
careful on who your beneficiary is.
Mr.
Roman, would
Roman.
you like to share a story with them as far as that? Like, can you elaborate on that a little bit deeper as far as be careful of who your beneficiary is, please?
Okay.
Some
Now,
examples.
Let me give you an example.
I
Let's
call them
say
testimonies because they're real.
I could give you testimonies on things like that when families come in and they find out let's say you've been estranged from your loved one for many years and you was the beneficiary because you're the only child and you got a $25,000 policy, but you done wrote down what you want. And when they go to the funeral home, they are actually the power of attorney of you at that point because they're the beneficiary. So they get to say what you will get, not what you wanted, what you get. And we have seen where many families, they get that insurance policy, they pay, they say, I want them cremated the cheapest way possible. Well, you might have wanted a traditional funeral. And it's sad. I've seen many episodes of many different forms of sadness. And guess what? The insurance policy has to pay the beneficiary because that's who you announce. So it's very important to make sure that you always update your beneficiary because sometimes you might outlive them.
I was just going to ask you, how difficult is it? I'm sure you would know this answer. Is it to change a beneficiary before you pass?
What
Is
you
it
would have to
difficult?
do, you would have to call the insurance company. They send you out a beneficial form where you have to change it, and then you have to have it witnessed, and then it's sent back into the insurance company.
Okay.
Otherwise, if you don't, but let me tell you another story on that. Let's say you passed you passed away and the beneficiary is still living. They can do whatever they want with that insurance policy again. But in order, and then they continue. Let's say the beneficiary changed, you only got the contingent now. Well, now you have to change those forms to get a new beneficiary in order to be able to make that policy work. Guess what? Otherwise, nobody gets to say what happens to that insurance policy.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, there are a lot of scary aspects to not planning. And I
Yeah.
think if people will just accept that and get with the program with respect to planning. And, well, I was just thinking, a lot of people don't plan for life. So, they're not going to plan for death. They're not even accepting that life needs to be planned for. So all of a sudden, now I'm supposed to plan for death. Well, I didn't even plan for my life. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's important that we start to look at the realities of life and stop fearing those things that we need to take into consideration with the whole concept of living, because death is a part of living.
Exactly.
Correct.
Exactly. Wow.
And
Bernice.
that's why I look at it. That's why I look
Oh,
at
go
it
ahead.
very serious. I said, Lord, how can I reach the mass amount of people? And that's when I started going to churches and stuff like that. And now when I met Trish, we can reach a mass amount of people through this organization here.
Yes.
But the point is, people still need the knowledge. They need to
Absolutely.
they need to understand how detrimental this is to families when you leave something on them. And you know what I've said? People to come to me and they say, Mr. Roman, can you help us? I've trusted people. And you know what? A couple times I got stuck. But the point is, I'm in a better position today where we can explain things to families, and I also have affiliates that I can actually help them with funeral homes that actually help families like I feel.
Correct.
So I
Right.
can help you through the whole process versus just one process.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you know what I tell
Wow.
them? I said, let me ask you a question. I say, really, there's no reason why families do not prearrange. It's only because of ignorance.
Yes.
And basically what that means is you want to spend that money on what you want today.
Yeah.
Right.
Then you pass away later that day. And guess what? You're leaving on your grandmother or your mother and father that's up in 70 or 80 years old.
Correct.
And they barely living on Social Security to continue to live. But yet
Absolutely.
still, they have a little nest egg, a lot of them, where they got to take that out of their little nest egg to bury you.
Correct.
And some of us are still 60 and 70 years old, just waiting to, and then they have to mess around and bury the elderly people. That's sad.
That is sad.
Yes. That's
And we
very
have
sad.
special programs for churches and for families where you might not be able to afford the whole package, but we have what we call an emergency package, where we can fit whatever you can start out with and gradually continue to keep building until you get that total package that you need. And again, all you need from the funeral home is the embalming and a viewing. That's all you need. And
Mr.
guess what?
Roman,
Yeah,
at Chapel Lawn Cemetery,
yeah.
is it possible, or do you all have funeral viewing services there?
Absolutely.
Good question.
But not due to
Oh.
COVID, not because of COVID right now, we're not. But
Right.
our chapel, there's no charge to use our chapel.
And it's open 24 hours to two people that want to come visit their loved ones.
And I've
I'm coming to
noticed-
see you guys. I can tell you
Yeah,
that.
I
coming to
think
see you
I'm
guys.
going to be coming to see you as well. I'm a lot older than most people here. Well, everybody here, but
No, you're not.
Oh, you're
well, I'm
only a
gonna be
year
s-
older than me.
I'll be-
yeah,
I'll be-
I'm 68.
I'll be
I think
I'll
he
be
beats
70 in August.
everybody on here.
Okay, so I'm just a couple of years behind you, but Trish, Beatrice, Bernice, I'm
Bernice.
sorry, Bernice,
It's
I wanted
okay.
to ask you, in your bio, it says you help families with pre-need/need services, but at the beginning of your bio, it says counselor. Do you offer after the burial, after everything is done, do you offer counseling? Can you refer people to a grief counselor, or do you do that? Do you offer that service?
What we do offer is we refer people to grieving counselors. There's many different ways of grieving.
Mhm.
Yes.
And we
yes.
make sure that we are educators. That's what I am. I'm an educator.
Mhm.
So I make sure that everybody gets the education that they need in this field,
Mhm.
dealing with death.
Okay.
Let me elaborate a little bit on Bernice also. What we do is, let's say when there's a death, a lot of families is emotionally stressed out. And what we do is we do a funeral follow-up. And we put together a bereavement package, a grief package. And we have where we actually, what I do too a lot of times is I take a fruit basket out to the family because a lot of families are undernourished. And I have a special account at Shields where I put together a fruit basket of oranges, apples, bananas, things like that is going to give you nourishment. And then I sit with the family and I say, Mrs. Jones, I am so sorry for your loss. And I brought you a little gift basket. And in between that, I say, I have bereavement package program where we can actually help you, like Bernice said, with different programs to help people move on into society, because a lot of people get stuck. Some
Yeah.
people never
Yes,
move on.
yes,
We can't.
yes.
And then you don't leave that family stuck there. You continue to be with that family.
Correct. And walk them through.
And you
the
help that family by showing them kindness and showing them love and continue to, because they become part of your family.
Correct.
Yeah.
See, that's what Memorial Gardens are. We are a family.
Family.
We build our heritage on family heritage.
Correct.
And that's what it is about closeness and being kind to families. And that's my motto, where I practice that on a daily basis.
Amen.
Where families feel comfortable to come to a memorial garden. And you know what I say to my wife? I say, honey, I said, we're going to be out of Chapel Run. For the simple fact is, see, again, I've been in this industry since 1995, and I've seen a lot of cemeteries grow up in weeds. A lot of cemeteries do not have the perpetual care, money set aside. That's why when you go into cemeteries, you see the tombstones toppling over, or they sinking in.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of them, the city have to come in, or people start to complain. Then families get together and they go out and mow the lawns.
Yeah,
Where if you have a problem-
volunteer, yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, if you have a problem with our memorial gardens, you say, Roman, my mother's memorial is sinking. We put in a work order and we make sure it's properly done. And I call you up and I say, I want you to come out and visibly see this yourself, and I want to make sure you're happy.
Is there an
That's the
extra
difference.
charge for that?
No,
No,
Oh,
that's all
okay.
part of
no.
the program.
That's why it's called perpetual care. See,
Mhm.
people have paid for that, and that's why we have the money set aside just for those things.
Right.
That's why we call them, that's the beauty set aside of a memorial park. That's our motto. They're always beautiful. It's just like going to a beauty salon. It always manicured properly.
And
that's
also
the
a
way-
part of that,
Pardon
and
me?
sorry, Mr. Roman, to cut you off. Also, a part of that is when the seasons changes, everything changes as well. So basically, you won't find Christmas decorations in summertime or spring,
Right.
or
Right,
if it's Easter. So,
Excellent.
and then, Mr. Roman, you might tell them about also the celebrations that we hold.
Okay. What we do every year with the veterans, is that our cue to time to cut off?
No, I don't.
No, that's I'm sorry, that's my mother's
Oh,
clock.
Oh, okay. What we
Oh.
do every year, which we couldn't do because of COVID, we honor our fallen veterans. And what that means is, let's say like between 2019 and up to 2021, well, I have approximately 92 fallen veterans. And what we do is we announce from the American Legion, which is a big support of my cemetery, where we all put together a beautiful Memorial Day celebration every year. And it's over 400 and some people. There's a few representatives come out there and they all speak, and they talk about the different like if you was a Korean veteran or you was a Vietnam War veteran or Navy or whatever. But they give honor and respect to every family that their loved one that was a veteran passed away. And it's very beautiful. And the way we have our park set up, and we have the bands from the local high schools and the fire trucks, everything. It's just absolutely beautiful. Like you would just have to see it. It'd be on the news every year. And we're going to put it together. Hopefully, we're actually starting to put it together, and providing the CDC says it's okay and it don't get worse between now and the end of May.
Right, right. Yeah.
I had to turn on my camera because I mean, wow, I'm blown away. Just listening in the background to everything that you are saying. I know that we will be coming over to you too.
Absolutely.
You know what?
I was-
It makes a lot of sense. I don't care how you try to turn the coin around to
Mm.
prearrange. And if you got children, it costs just as much to bury a child today if it was you. And
Absolutely.
like again, we have a child protection program, even for people that's not 60. Providing you in good health, we take and we bury that kid at no cost. If you got a kid it wasn't his fault that something is wrong with it, we still honor that child as also.
Wow.
And I also would like to add this much too. It doesn't matter if the child is adopted or
That's
foster
right.
child.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
I also wanted to say, I'm huge on making sure that everything is in order from our paperwork, and my mom will tell you that. I'm like, okay, your paperwork has to be in order. You got to get this license.
Yeah, she stayed on me.
Make sure everything is done.
Is that your daughter?
That's my daughter.
But listening to you, I'm like, do I really need that insurance policy? Because I'm like, we're all at a particular point. We're struggling to, again, to feed our family, and then we're still taking this money out of our paychecks to pay this insurance policy. And sometimes when I pay it, I'm like, oh, it's just like, if you feel like you're just wasting money, like it's just throwing just in case.
But you
Right.
are throwing away the money. So what Mr. Roman and I when we talk to clients, we tell them, instead of taking the life insurance policy out for the children, what you can do is put it in the ARA or put it in a CD account.
That's so crazy because I have a policy for all of us, and now I'm like,
Because
okay,
at least it will accumulate. It will mean
right.
something. Where I was doing it with 9 children. Can you imagine how much I was
Painful.
paying a month with
and I'm
9
doing it with 4.
children?
Wow.
I canceled. I spent thousands of dollars. I made. I'm not gonna lie to you. This is my testimony. I've made some hard decisions sometimes where not all the time, you have things that come up. Car
Right.
breaks down, all these different things that come up. You understand? If you own a home like me, you might have a pipe break.
Right.
These things
Yeah.
cost. So now I
Yeah.
have to make a choice between life insurance policy that a lot of times we're doing it either to give away. Well, my thing was to give it to my son when they graduate from school, from high school to go to college. That's their college tuition to me. Or
Yeah.
I was using it, or if they get married, this is a wedding gift. Now you could continue paying it, but it was the wrong mindset. It was wrong. When
So how do you
money-
suppose we got there? How do you suppose the majority of society does believe we need to have a life insurance policy? How do you suppose we've got driven to believe that?
I
Remember
in
back
your
in the
opinion?
day, didn't people used to come around and knock at the door to sell life
Yes.
policy?
Yes.
just like the Jehovah Witness. They used to be, you used to want to close, I don't, you're scared to open your door. And now these days we can't open our door to nobody.
Right.
Sorry, ID or no ID. So
Right.
to answer your question, Spicy, this is my thinking. Now I could be wrong, but this is my thinking. I think that we were seeing a specific culture doing something, and other cultures were like,
Maybe
well, if it's working for them, why don't we do it? But there's a big but. We didn't know all the underlined things.
Right.
Yeah.
We just thought, because life insurance was passed down from my grandmother started.
Grandmother. Yeah.
Then my mother did it. And my grandmother was paying for my children until I became stable, because I was in school, mortuary school, for 6 years. Studying funeral services for 6 years in college, paying my way. So, and then I took the baton. You understand? But sometimes we take the wrong baton and we are continuing bad habits.
Bernice, you know what? I'm a big proponent of evolution. Everything evolves. Okay, just because that's what we did 20, 30, 50, 100 years ago,
doesn't mean
it may be time. People need to think. It may be time to change that mindset based on what you guys are providing us with right now, because our mindset was we needed insurance.
Yes.
Now my mindset is being shifted based on what you guys are bringing to the table.
Absolutely.
And it's so powerful. So I think that we get stuck in these little vortexes. That's what everybody else did. That's what we're going to do. The follow the leader mentality.
And comfort.
Exactly.
We find a comfort zone, and we don't want to step out of the comfort zone, right?
We don't want to second guess. Nobody wants to be different. And to go on what you were saying, Mama D, Mama C, sorry about that.
Okay,
To
babe.
go what you were saying, it's not only if we think that everything changes, don't you think the life insurance policy changes? Because there's new diseases out there now. There's
Yes.
new health
Yes.
problems out there now.
Yes.
So those things are going to change too.
Absolutely.
So why not change our thinking as well?
So that it benefits us and not the insurance company.
Right.
Hello.
I'm saving
Hello.
money that I cannot get back. I wish I
That you
could. And
can
a
get
lot
it
of times, it's always the friend of a family that is the life insurance policy, the life insurance agent,
Mhm.
or one of your family members, or your friend,
Yeah,
Yeah.
somebody referred
or
your
your
name.
coworker.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me
That's your
let me
insurance
elaborate.
man. They say, can you explain the difference in me when it says life insurance, but I'm going to use it for my death insurance?
Mm.
Now, you know, when they see this show, the life insurance and people who sell life insurance, they're not gonna like this too much. But
That's
again,
good.
we
That's
need
good.
there
That's
needs to
good.
be change.
Yeah, but then let them defend. Let them come on and defend why.
Yeah.
I challenge them. I'm putting it out there.
Hello.
Because let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
If you could buy a home versus renting, which one would you do?
Buy the home.
Buy the home.
Okay,
That's
then
why we all homeowners, right?
then let me ask you a question. Why are people renting their debt?
Ooh. Ouch.
Oh,
Ouch.
well,
Deep one.
Ouch.
Wow.
That's
Look, I'm
Exactly.
gonna
Wow.
take a drink.
Wow.
I need to drink some water on that one. I need that
Okay.
water bottle.
I think I need a
Drink
glass
water.
of wine. Later for the water.
Drink
Give me some
water on
wine.
that.
Yeah, but that's true. You
Mr.
know what?
Roman.
Roman.
Fire.
Mr. Roman,
Yeah.
you said you do seminars. How
Yeah.
can we schedule you to do a seminar? Or how
Or
can anyone
workshop,
schedule?
something like that.
I just did a seminar. What was that? Tuesday night
Tuesday night, sir.
for a pastor for a church.
Right.
Now, when I started in this industry in 1985, look, this is the same brochure I started with. It haven't changed at all.
Hold it up,
And I
sir.
tell families, I say, there's only two ways you can do burial. You can wait until there's a death, or you can take care of it just like we sitting in the comfort of your home or in my office, and you pre-plan. What makes more sense?
Right.
Just like I say, if you had the opportunity, if the government said, we're giving away a grant tomorrow, you can own your own home, or you can rent. You'll see a line from here to Chicago.
Yeah.
I want to buy my own home. And when you get to my desk, I say, why you want to buy your own home? Now, there was a catch to this. Now, what we're really doing is saying, would you purchase your own burial, or would you still continue to wait?
Wow.
Because your burial would be your next.
That's
Wow.
powerful.
Because
Very powerful.
with you, we're
Yeah.
buying our home. With the funeral home, we're renting them at the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you know
Yeah.
what?
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what they tell you? They don't like companies like ours. You know why? Because we educate families.
And that's
Mm.
And you
what
know
we
what?
need.
When I was in Florida, when I first started out with this industry, a lot of the black funeral directors and the whites, they said, "Oh, you're Roman. You that guy." I said, "Yeah, I'm Roman." They say, "You the one that's taking our business away." I say, "I educate families on the
Absolutely.
difference. The
Preach.
difference in you waiting and you take advantage of a family, or they can live to be 100 years old, and all they do
And
is
at
pay
their
X amount
most
of money.
vulnerable state. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
I
Right.
can
What
tell
makes more
you,
sense?
I
And you
can
know
tell
what?
you, my husband dying, I lived in a fog. It was a fog. I can't even tell you where we went to get the cat. I don't remember a
So
single
you were
thing
like
about
that.
it.
You were like that.
Yeah,
Yep,
I don't.
exactly.
Yeah, yes.
Wrong
I
way.
don't remember. It was a fog, total fog.
And you
Roman,
know what? The funeral
you-
director loved you.
And
Yeah,
sure did.
yes.
Sure did.
$26,000 left her.
The 26. Yeah.
That wasn't
That
even
was just for
including
her
the,
husband.
that wasn't even including the cemetery.
No. We had bought plots years before. We had bought like 6 plots, and we also paid for the opening and closing of those plots.
That was
It
smart.
was a special that the cemetery was running, blah, blah, blah. And my husband was like, let's buy them. Let's buy 6 of them. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay. And we did years ago. So we have that, and we had that. But oh my gosh, when I think about what I spent, oh geez,
But see,
So
that's the whole
just think
point
if
of
the,
I
just
need
think
a
if,
drink.
it's
I need a drink of water.
pre-planning is not only about buying plots.
yeah,
That's where we trying to get everybody out of. Everybody just think, oh, I'm gonna buy the plot.
Yeah.
When you go get a house and you go try to buy a house, do you just buy the foundation of the house?
Yeah. See,
No, you want the whole
putting it
house.
that
You
way.
want the whole
That's
house
like
Yeah.
buying a house with no
No
kitchen,
roof.
no
with
bathrooms.
no roof.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Where's my roof at?
Look, you gonna get you guys about to get me to getting up and running around my living room, shouting hallelujah and all of that. I'm ready to have a real hallelujah moment right now.
Yes.
Because
well, let's
I
do
mean,
it.
yes, my darling.
Mama C, when you said that you just got your policy and you was thinking about canceling your policy, my mother told me and my siblings earlier this year that she canceled her insurance policy because she got
And then-
tired of paying for something that she overpaid for. So when Mr. Roman spoke about that, it's 100% accurate.
And now they
Hello,
tell
I
you-
believe it.
They tell you, insurance agents, they tell you, no, you don't. That's not true. Take out your calculator, do the math.
And
And don't
also
let you be
can
late.
borrow, you can borrow money against your insurance policy too, but they minus that from it. That's your money that you paid into it,
Already.
but
Right.
you
And
can
the-
borrow against it. And then let's say you still use that money. Most people borrow money because they need it.
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, you still get in a hardship 3 or 4 months down the road. Now you're in the hole for that. Now you ain't got no money. Now you don't have no insurance.
In
Now
other
you
words,
got
you
to
get
be covered.
screwed all the way around.
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
the way around.
Let me
Yeah.
tell you
Look
another
like-
thing. Let me tell you another thing. If you have a power of attorney, please do a DURA, DURA, power of attorney. For the simple fact is, a power of attorney stops at the time of death. A dual power of attorney continues, where you can actually take care of all the legalities and the estate and everything when the loved one passes away. I had a family come out to the cemetery today. The mom just passed away. They came in from Maine. And I was beginning to do the interment order. And I said, how do you plan to pay for the opening and closing? He goes, I'm going to use a credit card. As I began to put the information down, I said, Mary so-and-so name is the one that's just a deceased. I said, do you have any paperwork saying that you have power of attorney over this lady? He says, no. I said, well, you have to have a different way of paying me at this point. I said, the only way we could take something from Mary, if you were on either the checking account before she passed away, or either you had a dual power of attorney. I've had to turn people down because they tried to use. I said, let me ask you a question. That person is dead. Do you want to go to jail for fraud?
Wow.
You mean they were trying to use her credit
No,
card?
the account. If you
The
don't, yeah, if
I
you don't have
see.
a living will or dual power of attorney at the time of death, the state steps in and they handle all the affairs,
Yes.
and that could
Wow.
be a couple of years.
Mhm.
So what
Oh
you're
my
saying,
gosh.
Mr. Roman, is if I have an account,
Yeah.
I should have one of my daughters or
On
my
the
someone attached to the account as well, so that if I shall pass away, it will be easier for them to access those funds to pay for whatever stuff that they
Legally.
need.
Yeah.
Legally.
Legally.
Yeah.
Well, we need to
Legally,
do
right,
the
legally.
evaluation.
Without the
Otherwise,
popo
those
trying to
accounts
come and
become
get you and haul you off to jail, Trish.
Sounding like Medea.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
very
Yes.
important.
Yes.
It's very
I
important.
have one question,
Okay.
Roman, that I wanted to ask you. This $250 funeral pay that Social Security does. Can you
It's
enlighten
$255.
us on that? Can you
It's
enlighten us?
$255. Okay.
Okay. Oh,
What
went
the-
up $5. Okay.
Okay, what the state does?
I guess my question is, what the hell do you do with $250?
$50. Hello.
Yeah,
You gonna get drunk.
That's about it. That's about it.
255. Sorry. Yeah.
Look,
Yeah, that's
the
about
exit.
it. That's
You
about it. what
contributed to the
Trish said.
repass.
I
There
mean,
you go.
You can that's not even a dip in repass.
Now that's the tip.
No.
That's the tip.
Exactly.
The best thing you can do with that is give it to the
Put
kids.
it in the card.
Now be nice.
Put it in the kids' escrow account. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because really, it's sad that that's all they give you. And a
And
lot
that's
of times,
been that way for a long time, right?
yeah, that's sad.
So they
Yeah.
never raised that.
No.
Wow.
And another thing is about veterans. A lot of veterans think they're going to be buried free. Okay? So a lot of them, oh, the government is going to bury me. I said, let me tell you something.
Not.
I said, the only thing the government gives you, if you at a national cemetery, they give you a grave liner that goes inside the grave. Okay? You still got to pay for your casket. You got to pay to get there. You got to pay for all your other funeral expenses.
Mhm.
So all they're giving you is a spot and a grave liner and a flag and a memorial. But then,
Wow.
like at our cemetery, we give a veteran a free space. They still have to get everything else, and they have to pay for the granite piece that the memorial comes from the government.
Oh, wow.
So I
So-
tell families many times, I say, well, that is not true, sir or ma'am. I said, you can go to the VA and find out for yourself. But I said, I've been in this industry a long time, and that's exactly what they give me. So they still have to pre-plan. And then some say, well, I'll just go to a national cemetery. And guess what? You pass away 15, 20 years from now, you still got to go to the funeral home and you got to pay today's cost.
Mhm,
right.
mhm. Not
So I
yesterday's
think we have
cost,
about
today's cost.
Days.
I see we have about 5 minutes before we have to wrap it up. So I think we need to start on that note. There's so much information here that we
Wow.
need. I'd like for
There
Mr.
is.
Roman
Um,
for me, Bernice, to give us the information to where people can contact them.
Yes,
we'll
that's
also put that
exactly. Yes, you
information-
just,
Okay,
Go ahead.
let me just say a couple of things, what we do. CMS East has been around since the early 50s. The original owner founder was George Stockland, the senior. And our motto is, we value our clients, we have dignity and respect for all our families, and we do our best to put a package into a family's budget. And we belong to the National Cemetery Association Exchange, where your property can be transferred and you receive all the money you paid. You may have to pay a little difference in the cost, but you still have prearranged and you made a great investment. And also, I encourage all families, please look into prearranging because it makes sense and you do not have to leave it on your loved ones. And it will give you peace of mind to know that it was all taken care of. And to be able to reach me or Bernice, we're at Chapel Lawn Memorial Park out in Dallas, Pennsylvania, or Trish. The phone number is 570-675-4112. And please go onto our website at Chapel Lawn Memorial Park, and you can see how beautiful our park is. And also our other parks will show up at the same time. And we're in 26 locations throughout 5 states in the United States. And again, we belong to the American Cemetery Association Exchange, which is all over the world, not just America.
Wow.
Bernice, would you like to add anything? Would you like to, as we close, would you like to add anything at all?
He said it all. He said
Good.
it. He said it all.
Amazing.
Wow,
And I'm
you know,
Well, I
looking
have
forward-
to,
I'm looking
yeah, I
forward to-
have to say, I have truly been enlightened and
Me too.
educated in
Me
this
too.
last 90 minutes. I am so
Yeah.
grateful that both of you have come onto the show. Thank you, Trish, for
Thank you.
introducing them to us. I'm telling you, our listeners are going to find this information to be very valuable, very educated. Thank you so
And
much
if,
for
and if
sharing
you
your
need us to
knowledge.
come back, I would love to come back time
Yes.
and time again, because this is a topic that people need to keep being educated on.
Agree.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
I agree.
You
And
know what?
Trish-
It's like you
We would be
spend, you don't
honored to
just
have
spend
you
a,
back.
we don't just spend a year, a month or a week in elementary school.
That's
We
right.
spend 6 years
And
to learn
continue
what we need
grow.
to learn.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, I think reinforcement is the key here. And if we can get people, we can empower people with knowledge and help them to break through that wall of fear they have about death. Oh, I think so many people will be running to you guys because
Yes,
it's
I do
so
too.
important. I tell you, I feel awesome after
Oh,
today's
so do
session.
I.
Let's see.
Oh my God, I can't wait to
have a-
share this with my kids. Honestly, I
I
cannot
have
wait
a-
to share.
I
Your
have
kids,
a-
you know
I'm
what
going to
your
be
kids
making
will
an
say?
appointment with you all. I'm
And
going to
you
be
know what
making
your
an
kids will say
appointment.
to you? Most kids, they try to deter the family members from doing this, but deep in the back of their mind, they're saying, "Thank you, Mom. I didn't have to."
Yeah,
go through
well,
the decision for you."
Absolutely.
I'm telling you, they saw what we all went through. My husband was 50 years old. I came home, found him dead on the floor, and it was devastating for all of us.
Yeah.
I have a
and-
quote that I say, and I live by this. It's not each one teach one, it's each one teach many.
Right.
Absolutely.
Very nice.
And you know
I
what,
love
Bernice,
that
I'm with you.
mantra.
I'm a health educator. That's what I did for many years and designed wellness programs because you don't know what you need to do to live healthy if you don't have the information. And so
Absolutely.
the information you guys have provided today has taken me to a whole new level. And I'm
Yeah.
loving it. And I'm thanking
Yeah,
you
so
guys
am
for
I.
doing that.
Thank you
You're
for
very
having us.
welcome.
Thank you
we did
so
a lot
much.
in a little bit of time.
Yes, thank you so
no.
much for coming on to the show. We appreciate the information and look forward to seeing you in the future on some of our
Absolutely.
shows.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
And Trish,
Thank you guys.
Trish, you get the
Thanks
information
to
for them
everyone.
for me, please.
Thank you.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you, everybody.
Thumbs up.
Yeah, we on a sister shit. With us, we on a sister shit. Yeah, we on a sister shit. Go with us, we on a sister shit. Sister shit, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. Sister shit, we got
See,
it.
I do the one girl shuffle.
Let's talk about it. Shit, we got it. Come on, let's talk about it. Talk about it. Come on, let's